category, and on the lower end, category 1s versus category 4s or 5s as a percentage of their AMI. So I would like to serve notice that I would like to bring that up for discussion by the board and possible action this year. There are a couple of bills that are, CML has one that's, I think has been introduced. It hadn't been as of last week, but a couple of issues that are before the state legislature are vacancy taxes, different communities. Carbondale's looking at doing a vacancy tax or vacancy fee, and also a real estate transfer fee that would not require a Tabor vote. Those are early in introduction, and we'll have to wait and see how they go, and I'll try to keep you posted on those as we go along.
Okay. So we do have the affordability discussion tentatively scheduled for March 20th.
Right.
So I think that be a good time to bring that up. Okay, and I have no comments today, so we'll move to Matthew, Executive Director's update.
Okay. All right, I have quite a few things, so please bear with me. Okay, thanks to Warden John on the grant program that is officially up and running now. So Cat 4 owners can now apply for that since the city approved that by acclamation last week. So that's up and running, and we've updated the website to reflect that, and we had a nice social media post thanks to Carolyn over there. So that on the HOA RFP for reserve studies, RD3, the contractor, will be getting rolling out their plan to enact it. We're expecting to hear from them next week, and so we will be working with them to reach out to the HOAs. They've also had a very fruitful discussion with CORE. So CORE is piggybacking onto this. They're not directly dealing with APCHA, since it's, we wanted to keep the money streams clear, and that was the direction we got from the procurement people. So CORE is going to be working with RD3 at the same time that we do as they do the capital reserve studies, and they're going to be doing some targeted energy audits with the reserve studies. So that's great. Liz is online, so correct me if I've got anything wrong, Liz. Okay. I am still working with Jen Newton from the city of Aspen to get some clarity on your request for board emails and the different options we have for that. So I haven't forgotten about that. I don't have an update for you, but I have not forgotten about that. Starting tomorrow, we have our first session with Scott Bowman on customer service training and mapping. He comes to Aspen about 4 times a year. He's been doing a lot of work with the Parks Department for the past 10 years or so, and has worked for MBA teams and other people on customer service. So we are starting that tomorrow, and we'll probably be meeting with him quarterly when he comes in, but there's going to be lots of work in between his in-person visits. So we're excited about that. The HOA job, the new position that is up and available for people to submit, that's been up for about a week. I haven't checked to see if we have anybody applied yet, but we're optimistic on that. And again, Carolyn did a very nice social media post for that, so we're trying to push out that and not just rely on people coming across it on the website. Kelly, on March 5th at the OCC.
So we move our meeting off of election days. Is that which to March 6th? But I did flag that for our staff and said we need to be done by 4. Yeah. Okay.
But you'll be having a chat with your colleagues about
right.
about
yes. reporting out to our board. We're trying to do more standard
Yeah.
reports similarly to how the city is doing.
Okay.
I have a note to prepare for that. In my calendar.
And
I'll remind you on the
Okay.
and then on the tax returns on the transcript, the vendor we've been working with, they've been told to pause on that because the IRS is apparently, well, is updating the way they are going to be doing their tax transcript. So we're still in discussion with the vendor, but there's a hold on that due to the IRS changing things around. So we'll keep you updated on that. Okay, now I have two big-ish things and then one procedural thing. So we'll do, Liz, we're going to do your thing first so you can go. I think Liz is online. Okay, so the city of Aspen is putting out an RFP this year, and I'm going to read it. Seeks to engage a firm to conduct a thorough rental rate study for its portfolio of rental units. So that's the gist of it. And so I have a lot more information, but the consensus for you guys tonight is we would think that this would be a good opportunity to piggyback on this and do a rental rate study for APCHA, for all the APCHA units. So we would have to pay for some of it. I think the city was talking about in terms of $50,000 or so. When I talked to Diane, she said the APCHA chip-in would probably be no more than $25,000. So the primary objectives of this study are as follows: evaluate the affordability of APCHA and city-owned rental units to gain insights into renters' housing needs and assess the alignment of current APCHA category guidelines within this market. Conduct analysis to ascertain suitable rental rates for APCHA and City of Aspen-owned rental units and a comprehensive value of the city-owned rental program. Provide the Aspen City Council and the APCHA Board with information that will allow them to enact policy within the affordable housing rental program, and deliver a data set that can be used by city staff and APCHA staff for future analysis. We will, of course, come to you when we actually need to write a check. There'll be a resolution, but I just wanted to get a general sense from you guys that this is something you'd like to pursue. Yeah, Kelly.
Well, is this RFP already out? Has
No.
that been issued yet? Is drafted?
Yes,
Okay.
it's being drafted.
I would suggest then that perhaps we see if there's a way to sort of provide alignment with some of the information that is already existing out there. For example, like we and I know the Regional Housing Coalition have been using the MIT Living Affordability, their Living Lab Affordability Index, and they look at sort of costs of things in areas around the country. It'd be interesting to sort of prove, you know, how accurate that information is for our local circumstance, because it's pretty good, but it's not like great. We just know it. We know people are paying more than $2,500 a month in rent for a
Right.
2-bedroom here, right? On the market anyway. So I guess I'm just thinking if there's ways for it to be useful along those lines, or ways to inform our conversation about affordability,
Right.
then that would be very helpful.
And I think that's the underlying goal, not to speak out of turn for Matthew, but that is to look at all the current data and then other data that's out there. So what we are currently using.
I just think maybe we haven't identified like what affordability would look at, and like so what like necessarily what we would want to know is, to me, part of the missing.
And that's what this
question.
will aim to figure out, or aim to do.
But
So-
they don't want us to tell them what we want to know.
No,
they
no,
are
no.
going to do it.
I've got more. I can pass this round, but that was the scope of work includes provide an overview of property composition, categorization, distribution, rental rate distribution, and relevant information for all APCHA deed restricted rental units, and separately for all city-owned rental units. And then evaluate job profiles and salaries of likely renters in Aspen. What are the job categories and associated salaries of likely renters? What is the demographic profile of likely renters? And then there's a bunch of financial modeling, particularly on
I would offer maybe it'd be interesting to consider some like cost of living type of things. Like
And
we hear a
that
lot about
is-
health insurance,
yeah.
childcare costs.
and that is point 3. Evaluate the percentage of income allocated by renters towards rent and living expenses across categories, providing a similar product as shown in the attached affordability heat map. Do APCHA categories align appropriately with the incomes of likely renters? Are people spending too high a percentage of their income on rent in certain categories? How many categories of incomes would you recommend we have? How much rent can we charge? I'll pass this round, but this is the
Okay,
the
thank you.
RFP as it
Satisfied.
stands right now.
Yeah, there's a PDF you could just send out.
I can. Liz, would you like to comment on anything I missed?
But I'd say right now the RFP is very much still being drafted, but I can definitely send out that finished scope of work once it's done. So that way you have a better idea of what the deliverables are going to be from this study. So as if you are going to be contributing money. But the idea is if we're doing City of Aspen properties, we might as well also include the APCHA inventory as a whole. So that way we get a better picture of what affordability looks like in deed restricted rental units.
And I know this board is always hungry for information, so this would be,
I-
a lot of good information.
Yeah, I'd like to, if you're doing the comparison of what the incomes are in financial modeling, I'd be interested in how public sector salaries compare to private sector salaries.
Okay, so Liz, if you'll drop me that and I'll send it around to everybody else. But I just wanted to flag this for the board, and it's not a binding resolution or anything, but it just get a sense that this is something you'd like to explore, and probably about $25,000 from APCHA, and we'll come with you with that formal request. So I'm not seeing anybody who looks horrified by this idea.
John Ward?
Well, I'm trying to understand how city's going to pay for it, and dropping 25 grand additional on top of it or sharing the cost is any different than the information the city's going to get already.
The city could just do city-owned units, in which case we would not
That's the
contribute.
same motivation. I mean, it's whether you take a swath of city-owned units, what is it? I don't know what their number is, versus the number we've got, it's still the same information.
Not if they only use the public sector. Not if they only use the public sector incomes and they don't look at the private sector incomes as well.
I think we're just trying to.
That far
Yeah.
different?
I mean, I think that it's a more thorough if they also include our categories as well. They do theirs a little bit different, even though they go by our categories. I think to get a thorough, real good study on rental rates and what we're currently charging, I would suggest that we be included in on this as well.
Well, it just feels like we're going to get the information one way or the other, and to spend an additional $25,000 on something that it's probably going to be minuscule differences.
I think it makes a lot of sense, because if we look at the spread of the rentals within the categories in APCHA versus the city, that might help inform us on how we may want to adjust the
Right.
rental rates for APCHA categories.
But we'll come back to you with a formal request when this is a bit more baked, but I just wanted to flag it for you now. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to flag was, okay, so this is going to be a huge drain on particularly Andrew, but all of our time. So I just wanted to talk through this a little bit. And this is Colorado, it's HB 21-1110, Colorado Laws for Persons with Disabilities. And this requires all government agencies under the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. It is unlawful for any person to discriminate against an individual with disability. And that, in the new language, specifically applies to accessibility of government information technology and expands the state's accessibility standards to include all individuals with disabilities as defined by ADA instead of just people with vision problems. And if you are non-compliant, there's a whole list of things: a court order, monetary damages, attorney's fees, liability for non-compliant content lies with the Colorado government entity that manages the content. Liability for non-compliance on this platform hosting the content lies with the Colorado government entity that manages this platform. And this, and the operational date for this is July 1st. So what really we need to, we don't know. They haven't set the standards of what we need to do by July 1st, so this is a moving target which is affecting all Colorado government entities, but it is going to be a huge lift on revamping our website, revamping all documents sent out to clients, including links we send people to which we don't even maintain. So we don't even know what the full extent is going to be this by July, because the state has not set the actual requirements for applying this law, and they might change the date. So it's a moving target. We're still trying to work it out, but we do know it's going to be a huge amount of work, which is going to severely impact particularly Andrew, but I think all of us are going to have to be jumping in to make sure we comply with this. Our website has huge amounts of information, including HOA documents and documents that are put into the system when properties are built. All that has to be maintained in a suitable way to comply with the law, and we have to prioritize how we're going to do this. So it's going to be a lot of work, and I am flagging this because, unfortunately, regulatory compliance has to take priority over our other priorities. So I'm looking at the work plan, for example, and all the stuff under HomeTrek is mostly Andrew, and that is going to have to take a back seat while we figure out what this is. Andrew, do you have any other comments? Okay. So
His eyes are bulging.
yeah. It's been very frustrating so far because there is not clear what we have to do by July 1st. But we're trying to figure it out. And I know the county and the city are also dealing with this. There is a task force in the city working on this, and there's a lot of work going on. So we'll figure it out. But it is going to
House Bill when?
House Bill HB
21.
Yeah,
Wow.
1110. So I just wanted to flag that for everybody. Okay, and then we have Maddie out. So Cindy and Bethany have taken over qualifications, which they also have their day job. So I just want to discuss with you guys, particularly the March 6th meeting, but then going forward, what we want to talk about at the next meetings. We don't have policy discussions ripe for you for much discussion in the immediate future, and I'm not sure we're going to with all these other things going on, particularly with qualifications and this disability compliance thing. So I just want to have a discussion with you guys about particularly the March 6th meeting, and then going forward what we want to talk about in the next few meetings. On March 6th, we could have a couple of the amendments, right? The resolutions.
The resolution of your decision on the hearing today, and then sorry, I hate this. The resolution on the whatever decision you make on the hearing today would be on March 6th. And then I do need approval with regards to, we're getting ready to start the construction of 213 and 215. And the 213 comes out, it's being requested for the Housing Authority Fund. 215, because it was bought in a foreclosure, is coming out of the 620 foreclosure fund through the city. So a resolution would come to you, though, requesting to appropriate those funds so we can finish those homes, hopefully before the end of the year, if not the first part of 2025, so we can sell them then to qualified employees. So those would be the two items, the two resolutions that we would only bring to the March 6th meeting.
And then on March 20th, we have penciled in affordability standard. But, you know, if this RFP goes through, that will give us much better information. So I just want to have a discussion with you guys on, we don't have a robust policy agenda to bring forward to you right now. So, you know, either we have that discussion on what you'd like us to work on, but we are also working on regulatory compliance and also doing Maddie's work on qualifications. So we're just giving it to you straight on what's going on in APCHA right now.
Kelly?
I'd like to think about it a little bit.
Yeah,
and come a
please.
little more prepared
Yeah.
to our next meeting. A couple of things. When will this RFP, like, when are we pushing the affordability conversation off of?
I think that's part of the issue. I mean, the RFP, I don't know if Liz is still on, but certainly
I'm
the
still
RFP
here.
the RFP will go out, and then, I mean, we probably won't have good data for 9 to 12 months, which I understand is a long time to push a discussion out, but at the same time, without data, I don't know if it's worth having that conversation or not. Because we won't, if you ask for data, we won't be able to give it to you until this study is done. But Liz, is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. And right now the goal is to publish the RFP the end of March.
But I don't know.
Okay. And then my next question was, I was under the impression we were going to have some discussion related to a communications plan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that merits time on a future agenda to do that. You can consider that and come back to me next time. So those are two immediate things that come to mind. And then I wondered, I saw that you guys had posted the job for the liaison to HOAs.
Right.
How's that going?
We have five applicants
Oh, great.
that just came in.
Okay, great. And I think we could maybe consider, if there's not policy meetings, maybe there's opportunities for us as a board to be doing things in the community instead. So just food for thought for the next
I'll
conversation.
piggyback on that. So as you've probably seen on the third Thursday of every month in the Aspen Daily News, there's the Housing Matters column. And within that, really the goal of that, like we've talked about, is to be just sort of informative, direct interaction, you know, or message to the community. And I would say if you have ideas for topics, if somebody wants to write something, or if you have feedback, completely open to that. So.
And, you know, we don't have to figure this out now, but for right now, we'll probably do the resolutions on the 6th, but there may not be anything else. And then if you guys think of things you'd like to talk about it, great. And I'll talk to Carolyn about getting the communications team out here and, you know, look forward to your thoughts on that. So we don't have to figure it out now. I just wanted to let you know all the things that we're doing. Great. I think that's it.
Okay.
Cindy?
Cindy?
No.
But I know that we will have some other ownership units coming up. The lottery for the 5 last Burlingame 3 units ended today at 4. We will be holding the lottery on Monday for that. There's a couple of Centennial units that we are marketing right now as well. One of them actually ended today. And it's, so we seem to still be having quite a few resales that we have coming up. Some of them still stem from the Burlingame 3 coming online, and some are people who have just decided to leave the valley or have found something else. And we do, Pam does ask for that information when they say that they want to sell. She asks why, if they're leaving the valley, if they found a free market, if they found another deed restricted housing. So we do have that. We can probably provide some of that information to you over the next couple of months as to why they're moving. So again, just remember to sign up for notifications, because we keep having things come up. So it's important that people do that. That causes more qualifications for us to do, but we'll get there.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move to the consent calendar. There is one item, which are the minutes of the February 7th, 2024 regular meeting. Any discussion or changes or motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar of the minutes of February 7th.
Okay, a motion from Kelly,
I'll second.
second from Ward. And it's a roll call vote.
Okay. John Ward?
Aye.
Ward?
Yes. Yes.
Carson?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move to the fourth quarter, 2020, end of 2023 HomeTrek report from Andrew.
Good afternoon, and I apologize. I am still getting over a bug that I had over the last week. So if you need me to speak up or repeat something, please just let me know. All right, let me share my screen. So for this presentation, I did move to just, looking at the last 4 quarters. So I'm not going to focus just on Q4. This is going to be all of 2023. In our last, if it was the last one I presented on, I do want to start looking more longitudinally across multiple quarters, so we can start seeing any trends that might exist. So this is going to kind of be in that new realm. It's going to look still fairly similar. I didn't want to throw brand new things at you right away, but if there are some suggestions on, hey, we'd prefer to see it like this, let me know, and we can make that work. So looking first just at inventory, this is inventory as it stands today. 3,213 units. Ownership accounts for 1,733. Rental for 1,369. And then those other units, 111. As a reminder, those ownership/rental units are deed restrictions that allow a unit to either be a ownership or a rental. And then moving into applications. So in 2023, we had 2,508 applications either approved or denied. So that is the full review. They went through the full review process. That is an increase of about 1,000 from 2022. And we can attribute a good amount of that to the 74 new Burlingame units that came down the pipeline. Out of that, 1,545 were approved, 963 were denied. I do have denial reasons and kind of a better breakdown on this slide. So the light blue is the approved based on the application type. The dark blue is the denied. You can see for long-term rental, while we did have more approved than denied, it was a fairly even split out of the almost 1,000 we received in 2023. Tax credit rental, it's not uncommon for us to deny more of the tax credit applications just due to their income restrictions. Denial reasons on this include being over income limit. I did include this on here, but having temporary legal status in the country, while as of, I think it's January 1st, 2024, our new regulations did update that to allow for, regardless of having temporary legal status, they can still qualify. in 2023 that was a denial reason. So that is included here as well. Being unable to prove full-time employment. Other would be something like they didn't reply to the offer, there was a deadline on an offer and they did not reply. They did not provide all their documentation, such as pay stub, income information, tax information, or other combinations. Out of this, I did pull some data on what our highest denial reasons were out of these 190. That number is not correct. 196. I will fix that. Correct in your applicator, your report booklet. My apologies. 963 denied, so I will make an adjustment that number is not 196, it's 963. Out of that, 524 of those were over income for the unit that they were applying for. So that might not mean that they can't qualify for something else, but the specific unit that they were applying for, they were over income, whether that have been a tax credit or a long-term rental with a category associated with it. 92 were under the minimum occupancy for rentals. We do not allow people to qualify without meeting minimum occupancy. 87 were unable to prove full-time employment within Pitkin County. And then again, for the temporary legal status, which was the fourth highest, there were 55 that were denied for that reason. Any questions on this one? Or?
Do those folks know to reapply?
That I don't know. I don't know if we've made a concerted effort to reach out.
You know, they may have like heard that they could and then applied.
I've reached
and
out
don't know they can.
to like Valley Settlement and Manaus and Voces Unidas, and I've told them, but I haven't reached out specifically to individuals. But yeah, we can do that. That's a very good idea, Kelly. Thanks.
Sure, thank you.
So breaking it down, just looking at ownership, just because we did have such a lot of sales happen in 2023. This is the bell curve of all the applications that came in by these households categories. So we can see the highest number of category households we had were for category 3. Next highest is category 4, category 2 being the third highest, and then, you know, our edges of our bell curves with category 1, category 5, and category RO. As a side note here, as a reminder, this is just applications that came in. This isn't necessarily the makeup of people who might want to get into APCHA program. This is just people who went through the application process and were approved in the application process. So I always try to take that with a grain of salt, that this doesn't represent every single person in the valley. This is just those that were approved with an APCHA sales ownership qualification in 2023. And that could also be based on what units were available. I don't think we had any RO listings. While a lot of ROs don't have to sell through the APCHA lottery process, I don't think 2023 had any RO up for lottery process, so that could drive why we only had 10. We also had 0 category 1 units available for purchase this year, so that again, that could have driven a low number of category 1s who applied. Looking at APCHA managed units, so this is what I was kind of talking about in just a little bit new perspective. On the left-hand graph, what you'll see, each of the bars are represented for one of the APCHA managed properties, and then the line above it is how many release or new or renewed leases we had in that quarter, so you can kind of see where the trend in terms of what our property management works with throughout the year. With Meralt being leases starting on September 1st, we would assume to see a high number or the highest number in Q3 comparatively. As a note, you might say, hey, you have 351 units. Why did you have 369 new and renewed leases? There are times where someone signs a new lease and then they win a unit, and so then that unit's turned over twice now in the same year. So there are a handful of instances of that happening. So that's why that number is higher than our total number of units. Looking at move-outs, we only had 127, which only accounts for 36% of the APCHA managed inventory. So that's that 351. That number would be much less if I take out Meralt, which I always include Meralt just because we are the property managers for it. However, since it is seasonal based, if you'd like to see that broken out separately, because we know we're always going to have that turnover since those leases are only 8-month leases, that is something I can start doing going forward. Move out reasons that we had based on these 127, 7 purchased a home, 6 transferred to a new unit, 1 went away for school, 1 was no longer in compliance with the housing requirements, 2 had job changes that took them outside the valley, 1 had issues with management, maintenance of property or their unit, and then 109 were other, but we classify all the Meralt as other there, so 97 of that 109 is indicative of those Meralt units there. Moving on to maintenance requests. This one I actually found quite interesting. In 2022, we only had 534 maintenance requests, and we had 809 in 2023. And the largest increase was both in plumbing and electrical. I took out make ready and other. They're included here for your purposes, but looking at ones that aren't just natural turnover. Our plumbing and our electrical were highest in 4 out of the 5 properties, and I think electrical was only the highest for, let's see, where was that one? Only for Meralt was electrical higher than plumbing. All 4 of our full-time properties had plumbing issues as the highest maintenance category that we saw in 2023. All right, looking into interest submitted. Again, this is just for APCHA managed properties. I'll explain both tables. The top one, that's how many people submitted interest for each of these properties as they came available during 2023. As a reminder, our regulations state that when a unit comes available for one of the APCHA managed properties, we do list it. There's a time for it to be open, and then from that list, we look at who has the longest work history within Pitkin County and then offer that unit to them. That's different than how most long-term rental properties offer units. Since they are privately managed, they have the say to be able to offer the unit to whomever they choose, as long as they meet the APCHA requirements. Broken in the lower one is where you can see within those properties what size unit they were, how much interest we saw on those specific bedroom sizes or at those categories. Looking at that technically 6th line, but 4th of the properties, Trust got 1. We did have 5 units, 1 studio category 2, 1 studio category 3, 2 2-bedroom category 3s, and 1 RO studio. Between those, they're averaging 50 to 75. So about 60 people submitting interest for 1 unit at a time. Aspen Country Inn, we do typically see a lot of interest for, and I think, this is anecdotal, at least to me, is since these rents are so much lower, even though we do put out the income requirements, it is basically a pre-application to say, I'm interested in this unit, but it is not an actual application. Not until we look at their actual work history and start going through the list from the longest do we take them through the application process, so that we're not making 181 people go through a LIHTC application, which is even more in depth than our regular application that we do. Same thing with those studios at Truscott 2, the LIHTC 60, that 60% AMI is what that 60 stands for. Those rents are pretty low when you take in consideration what a rent for a 2-bedroom in the valley is. But again, those income restrictions are quite restrictive. And since we require minimum occupancy on a 2-bedroom for Truscott 2 would have to be a 2-person household making under $56,400.
So that's so interesting. So 181 people said, yep, I make 30 grand a year. Sign me up.
Not necessarily. I mean,
Do they know that when
they're attesting
when
to
they're
it?
submitting their interest?
Correct. They do have to say, yes, we will provide information. And usually immediately when our property management asks them for the backup documentation, we see they're over, and then we have to go on to the next person immediately.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you.
John, I see your hands raised.
I'm trying to, so across the top, on the lower chart, maybe you're not there yet, but just bedrooms. It looks like there was quite a bit of interest in 2-bedroom compared to the other units. Is there a way to kind of extrapolate that out and see what we have the greatest? I mean, is that the greatest interest we have as far as units goes?
Yes, but again, remember this is as they come available. So while this data shows that, it's also only showing what was available during 2023. So I can't necessarily pinpoint the interest of the community based on what they're looking for off this, but we can surmise based off the data we see that yes, that was the highest level of interest based off, I'm assuming, what the rental rate is for a T2 2-bedroom.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Marolt's pulled out of this as we just as a note, we don't post submit interest for Marolт. There is a sign-up process that goes live in the summer for people to be able to snag some rooms for the winter season. All right, so moving into sales and bids. So this page is talking specifically about listings. The donut chart at the bottom, we had 82 listings in 2023. February was the only month that we did not see. That orange and kind of goldish represent July 23 and September 23, and that is when the majority of the Burlingame 3 listings went live. So these are based off start date. The table in the upper left-hand corner is how many listings per category. So we can see the highest number of listings that came available in 2023 were category 4. There were 32 units out of those 82. And then on the right-hand side, it's based off bedroom. So we can see that the majority of units, well, not the majority, but the highest percentage of units were 2-bedroom units in 2023 that came on, with 31 units out of those 82 listings. And I meant to only say listings because I just want to reiterate that with Burlingame, we had 36 lotteries for 74 units. And so there were some lotteries or listings that had 1 unit based on how we set it up for the process to spread it out. And there were some lotteries that had 5 units in it. So please just be aware when we start seeing how many units actually closed and start getting into that, it's going to be higher than 82. And if you go, why is there more units than were listed here? A good chunk of that is because of the additional units, so that we weren't making people bid on every single Burlingame unit that they were interested in, to help save a few bucks here and there. Moving on to bids in general, we had 3,267 individual bids in 2023. 2022 had just shy of 2,000, so again, an increase of about 1,200 bids total. Again, we can attribute a good number of that from the 36 additional listings that we had in 2023 from Burlingame Phase 3. The 3 tables, I'll actually start with the bottom left. This is bids by the unit bedroom size. So in parentheses next to the bedroom size is how many units were available during 2023. So we had 57 bids on studios, but there were 2 studios. So again, take that into consideration. I did some averages. Studios typically see, or at least in 2023, saw 29 bids average for those 2 units. 1 bedroom saw about 50 bids out of those 25 units and 1,233 bids. 2 bedrooms saw about 36 bids per unit, and 3 bedrooms saw about 37 bids per unit. We did have 1 6-bedroom that went up in 2023, and that had 18 bids, so the average was pretty easy to figure out. On the right-hand side, this is units by category. Typically, this is a little easier to extrapolate some data from, as our APCHA regulations state that people can bid at their category or +1, and that is still true per our regulations. However, the City of Aspen resolution that was passed last year for Burlingame Phase 3 did restrict people to only bidding at that category, so please just be aware. Those category 4, 32 units, 1,295 bids. Some of those are 3 and 4, category 3 and 4 households, and some of those are just category 4 households for those Burlingame 3 category 4 units. And then up top, that is the breakdown of bids by household size. The top bar is 1, 2, and 3 adult person households. The second line is number of dependents. Third line is total bids, and then the percentage breakout. So, for example, 1 adult, 0 dependents. We had 1,766 bids, so 54% of our 3,267 came from a single person household, no dependents. We did have one 3-person household with no dependents. They bid on 2 different units, so they accounted for 0.06% of our bids in 2023. Any questions on this? Looking at lotteries overall, we had 77 lotteries that occurred in 2023. So some of the ones that were listed in December would have been listed or accounted for in the 82, but they didn't have their lottery until January 1st, so they're not accounted for here, just as a note there. Averaged about 6.4 lotteries a month. Reminder again of the BG3 lotteries had 1 to 5 units per lottery. So our 3 donut charts, the left-hand one here is talking about the number of winners. There were 110 winners associated with these 77 lotteries. Again, multiple winners per lotteries in Burlingame. It's actually a pretty even spread on the number of chances. And remember, our chances are based off 4-year increments. So 5 chances is 4 to 8 years, 6 chances is 8 to 12 years, and so on and so forth. They max out at 9 chances for anything over 20 years consecutive work in Pitkin County. On the right-hand side, this is the breakout of what their current residence is, whether it was APCHA deed restricted, free market, or other deed restricted, which could include Snowmass, Garfield County, Eagle County, etc. Could even include Pitkin County for the ones that don't have an APCHA deed restriction on them. We can see majority of them came from already living within the APCHA program, and then the one down at the bottom, current owner false means they're a renter. That's the light blue, and current owner true is they are a owner of a unit. And so there are only 29. I have the breakdown of owner by residency by what their current is. We only had 2 free market current owners win out of that 110. Only 2 other deed restricted out of that 110, and 18 deed restricted out of that 110 that were current owners. So there were only a total of 22 current winners. 29. Sorry, my math is off on this one. Yep.
So the 81 moved from the rental market into the ownership.
Correct. Correct. And out of that, the 2 highest categories were free market and APCHA deed restricted within that 81. And then looking at average work history, this graph is showing the 4 quarters. In quarter 1, it was 20 years. Quarter 2, 20 years. Quarter 3 dropped to 15 years. Quarter 4 dropped to 13 years. So the average for 2023 average work history to win a unit was 17 years here.
Hey, is that skewed because of kind of that 4th quarter? You had a
Yes.
big influx of units available, and more people got housing. I mean, you could probably say it exactly how I just said it, right? You
Yep.
filled a gap where it shortened people's wait.
Correct.
Not by much, though. Wasn't it 18 years in 2022?
It was. Yeah, so the average from year to year, 2022 to 2023, did not drop by very much. But we can see within the quarters, based on the available units that and the lotteries that were happening during those quarters, it did impact the overall average work history. And then last page is looking at number of units that closed within 2023. So first column after category is the total number of units. Second one is the average sales price by category. And then fourth is the total sales within that category. What I also pulled just to kind of give a little bit more context here is the max sales price for each of these categories for 1 to 3 bedroom ranges. And all of these, obviously there were no category 1 sales, but category 2 sales fall within the range of a 1 to 3 bedroom, which is the majority of our units. The only studios were category 4, and the only 6 bedroom was a category 5. So the Cat 2 average fell at 170, but the Cat category 2, 1 bedroom, max sales price is 131. A 3 bedroom is 196. So that falls within that range of 1 to 3 bedrooms. Same thing for category 3, 219, 718 falls within the range of 197 to 272. Cat 4 is the only one that skewed actually below the 1 bedroom at 323. A 1 bedroom category 4 max sales price is 325, but it did have those 2 studios in there, which would have helped skew it down a little bit. And there were a lot of Hunter Creek sales, and Hunter Creek typically has some low sales prices currently, just because we've had a lot of current owners who their flat appreciation has not, brought their sales price up to the max sales price.
I have been interested in this question. I mean, we've talked about it, but if there is a way to sort of see maybe a heat map or something, I just continue to wonder what the spread is. Like when people are buying some of these older units, how much below what the current
Max
range is are they buying those units for? And I guess I wonder if there's a way to look at that a little more comprehensively. We might consider some whether we want to buy those and sell them at a higher rate and reinvest that money if it would be appropriate for those units. But I just don't even know if we have enough information to have that conversation yet.
I mean, I have
But it goes back to sort of the affordability. Like there's people who are qualified to afford a certain amount and they're winning a unit that's way below that. It's almost like a windfall to them, and I'm not sure that best serves the program. So if there is a way to look at that, I'd be interested in.
And I think looking at units that are the same, that like we've talked about many times, that have not turned over versus turned over many times, that are exactly mirror images, but have $150,000 difference in sales price. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
All right. Last item on the agenda is the deliberation of hearing held February 7th, 2024 on Miriam Silvino's appeal to the APCHA Board appealing hearing officer's written decision regarding Miriam Silvino dated November 2nd, 2023, affirming the notice of violation dated August 31st, 2023. We do have an executive session noticed. It is not required should the board determine that we need legal advice from Tom. We can request that executive session as it has been noticed. For this deliberation, the voting on this today will be Ward, myself, Kelly, and John Ward, and I believe all of the voting members were here except for John Ward. So Tom, how does that work from a procedural standpoint?
If John, am I on here? Yeah, I think so. If John does, John was not at the meeting, so
John was not,
the only
correct.
way John can participate in voting is if he had listened to the tapes of the oral arguments presented by.
I'd like to say that I read the 600-page packet that I got sent from Cindy, but I did not. I read bits and pieces of it, tried to get as much gleaned from it, but I probably don't have the background to actually really be able to vote, so I should abstain.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate because obviously the presentations on the opposing sides of the last meeting is relevant to the deliberation. So if someone wasn't here to hear that or hadn't listened to the tapes,
Okay.
shouldn't vote.
So it'll just be limited to Ward, myself, and Kelly, who were all here at that meeting. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and open up for deliberation.
And can I just clarify that legally constitutes a quorum for
Correct.
Yes.
any meeting purpose for APCHA.
Correct.
We have a city attorney and a citizen appointee.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Carson,
Yes.
I'm going to drop off because I'm not a voter and I have not kept up with this, okay?
Okay. Thanks, Francie.
Good to see you guys. See you soon, I hope.
Feel better.
See you in 3D.
Thank you.
Who wants to kick us off?
Could you possibly walk us through what the procedure should be here for this hearing?
Sure. So this is the deliberation of the appeal, and so at this time it would be up to us to deliberate our thoughts on this appeal. We have the option to come to a consensus tonight and vote on this. We also do have the Peter was here at the previous hearing, and if we decide that we would like to table this until the next meeting, we do have the ability to do that as well.
If I could just add a few things.
Sure.
In acting on the appeal, the three options are to affirm, deny, or affirm, deny, amend, or send it back to the hearing officer for further fact-finding. In terms of the action, the procedural part of it, tonight you have the option of making a decision, but ordinarily, given the fact that it's potentially or it is subject to appeal under Rule 106, there should be written findings of fact and conclusions of law. So the procedure we usually follow is to direct staff, which would be me and your staff, to prepare a resolution reflecting your decision for final approval at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll just note for anyone who's listening now didn't listen before, we did review the hearing officer's full record that was presented in our last packet, and we heard presentations from our compliance staff as well as from Ms. Silvino and her attorney at the last, and then they had a chance to sort of rebut each other and answer questions that we had. So in reading this body of evidence, there are things which to me are clearly in APCHA's purview, and then there are other things which raise questions that I don't personally feel are in APCHA's purview, and I don't personally feel comfortable as an APCHA board member upon which to make any assessment. So, you know, I think with my preference would be those outstanding questions get handled in a court if that's what that Ms. Silvino and her attorney chooses, because I feel like they're out of our purview at this board level. I think the evidence about the clarity related to the rules of our requirements for when a marriage is dissolved and how a property is treated in the dissolution of marriage are straightforward, and that the evidence seems straightforward related to, you know, that 4 years had not passed and those regulations were in effect at the time, and the marriage dissolved, and so the property had to go up for sale. I support that finding of the hearing officer and the recommendation following from that. Some of the other questions I don't wish to comment on personally.
Thanks, Kelly.
Point of order. John Doyle was here for the hearing. Since I'm here, he can't vote, but I would think that we could have questions or comments from John if he wishes.
Understanding that you're not going to vote, yes, you can comment or ask questions of me, I guess. I can't ask questions of the parties, but as your attorney, if you want to ask me something, okay.
Don't really have any questions. I'd say it was. I thought the hearing was pretty straightforward, and both sides got an opportunity to present their cases, and I'm going to abstain from commenting further, but I do think that the board is paying attention and listening carefully.
Thank you, John. Ward.
Yeah. To me, the crux of the matter is that both parties are have to qualify to own this unit, to continue to be in compliance. Both parties have to, pardon me, have to qualify. And if one party does not qualify, that, I think, is grounds for upholding the hearing officer's decision. That to me is the crux of the matter. And I think that there was, I thought it was undisputed that one party, Mr. Francis, was not living in the unit, was not working in the valley. And on those grounds, I'm leaning towards upholding the hearing officer's decision.
Thanks, Ward. Kelly, I think, and Ward and John, I think you've hit on a lot of the points. I mean, this is these are always tough decisions. It is a necessary job of this board is to ensure that the rules apply to everyone, that everyone is adhering to the same regulations. And with this, again, I think we have it's I don't think disputed that we had one party that didn't meet the occupancy and work requirements, and in the regulations, a violation by one owner is a violation by all owners. And so I too am going to be voting to affirm the hearing officer's written decision based on that. So if is there any further discussion? If not, is there a motion?
I don't think we have anything to make a motion
Or is
on
it just
currently.
direction?
Direction, but you should
Direction.
vote on the direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to see staff be directed towards upholding the hearing officer's decision based on one party not being in compliance either with work requirements or occupancy requirements. And that, as Carson said, that if one member is out of compliance, both are out of compliance. So on those grounds is where I would base my decision.
Okay, thank you, Ward. So a motion from Ward to direct staff to affirm the hearing officer's written decision.
Oh, you need a motion for that. I'll move.
Would you like to, I think
Sure.
Ward moved, would you like to?
Second.
Second? Okay, and Cindy, it is a roll call vote.
Ward?
Yes?
Carson?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Ward, yes. Carson, yes. So sorry. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
And John Ward, as noted, is abstaining.
Yep.
Okay, that concludes the last item on the agenda. And with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move to adjourn.
Got a motion from Kelly.
Second.
Okay, and it's a roll call vote.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carson?
Yes.
And Ward.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.
Yes.
John.
Oh, and John? Yes? Thank you, John.
Okay, and the meeting is adjourned, 5:07.